My presentation will be somewhat different because I'm not an industry practitioner. I'm a university researcher, and I work on those areas that really interest me. And in recent years, I've become quite interested in the aims and objectives of the wider happiness well-being literature. But let me just talk about some of the issues that I'm finding quite interesting at the moment to look at. According to this widely accepted beyond GDP approach, which is supported by many Nobel Prize winning economists, the emphasis is on well-being as an essential dimension of sustainable development. And most of you would be familiar with that. Now, by implication, tourism stakeholders should pay serious attention to the implications of the beyond GDP approach, with its application of a well-being lens to guide and assess destination planning and development. I've nominated there 3 issues which I think are very important. One is that a well-being lens can inform us about the directions of tourism planning and development that enhance resident well-being. In much of the discussion that I've found in the tourism literature, there isn't a discussion of well-being. There's discussion of lots of other issues, but you'll be hard-pressed to find the concepts happiness, well-being, quality of life mentioned in much of the tourism sustainability literature. Destination competitiveness is another area where I think well-being issues have been sadly neglected. The ultimate aim of achieving a competitive tourism industry is to enhance the well-being of residents. We don't build a tourism industry for tourists, we build it for residents. Hopefully, if we deliver a good product, then tourists will come back and they'll speak well of the destination. But the tourism industry is created for resident well-being. And there seems to be an assumption, though, that if we're competitive in lots of other ways, that will enhance well-being. And I think that assumption is questionable. And I think there's a fine set of research issues that can involve the role that well-being can play in the destination competitiveness literature. Tourism participation and the third issue is the global tourism industry and its role in achieving and maintaining well-being associated with the 2030 SDG agenda. There seems to be an assumption also in the literature that if we can achieve various sustainable development goals, then by implication, well-being and happiness will follow. Well, I question that assumption. At least it needs analysis. And tourism participation in the agenda must go beyond impact assessment to include a concern for well-being. And I think that that is also a sadly neglected area. I'm now going to mention some challenges which I believe emerge from the beyond GDP approach, and I've mentioned them as issues which require the researcher to go beyond research business as usual. The first one is beyond perceptions. Much of the tourism literature has focused on subjective measures of tourist and resident well-being, using relatively easily collected survey data on perceptions and satisfactions. In fact, most of it, I think, or the balance of it, is focused on tourists' satisfaction and their perceptions of the tourism product. But I believe that more robust measures of current and future well-being beyond resident perceptions are necessary if resident values are to link with the different drivers of well-being. Another issue is competitiveness. As I mentioned before, I think that well-being issues have been badly neglected. There's an enormous literature on competitiveness, and I believe that we need much more focus on incorporating changes in well-being. Then there's beyond the here and now. To properly assess tourism's role in sustainable development, researchers must focus on the links to well-being of changes in the quantity and quality of capital stocks over time. And this is another area that I believe has been badly neglected by tourism researchers. they have the three links, the Boolean diagram with the economic, the social, and the environmental. And yet that's a static conception. What we need is a dynamic conception that tells us how well-being can be transmitted from the present to the future. And that requires an analysis of the changes in capital stocks, the economic, the environmental, the social, and the human. Then there's beyond the market. Market prices of human capital, social capital, natural capital are often unavailable. And even if they are, they're often inappropriate. These measures must be developed, which include all the costs and benefits of development. And that involves what economists call shadow pricing, where there's a serious effort made to develop the true costs of development. And I think that is an issue that really needs a lot more work in the tourism area. Then there's beyond weak sustainability. All of those issues there are issues that I believe the tourism researchers have something to say. And if tourism researchers can start to address these types of issues, I believe that they can make a genuine contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals agenda than they are in fact making. It'll be a win-win, a win for tourism and a win for broader addressing of the Sustainable Development Goals. So thank you very much.